I'm sorry if during this video I seem a little bit frustrated. I've just done this video and then found out that halfway through my microphone ran out of battery power. So I lost about 10 minutes of waffling. Anyway, this is the review for Book 3, The Encounter. The first thing I want to cover is the cover, because we've got a substantial change. It's the first time we've got full body morphs on the front. And I believe this was the first book by who is known as the Animorphs artist. You can find him on Twitter at Animorphs artist. And I'm hoping to get a piece of wall art from him at some point, because he's doing that, about £40 each, and I'm hoping to put it up there somewhere. It will probably be book 13, which is the second Tobias book. Funnily enough, this is the first Tobias book. So how does it rate against books 1 and 2 that we've read so far, both of which got a score of 8 out of 10? This is Osmium Peach's favourite book of the series, Osmium Peach being a moderator on the Animorphs Discord, which you should go join, by the way, link in the description. Before we go further in, I want to thank Marcus for sending me these. These are Animorphs books from a different country, called Norwegia or something like that. Let's have a quick look at them. I think something's wrong with the printers over in Norwegia. The writing's all funny. Oh well, thank you very much, Marcus, for sending me those. Let's crack on with the review of book 3. The Encounter. This is a Tobias book, and of course, because it's the first Tobias book and he's been stuck in a hawk body for the last 2 books, that is one of the primary focuses for this book. There is a major plot, and then there is the rather large subplot. The subplot, let's cover that first. Tobias is in clear depression, grief, and at one point he actually attempts to commit suicide, which I covered briefly in my last video. It was a very serious video about World Suicide Prevention Day. It is a huge issue, so if you want to see more about that, go check out the last book. But there is a really deep and meaningful topic that's covered in book 3 of a young adult series, which is it's part of Animorphs. It's appealing to a demographic that's probably too young for a lot of the stuff that's covered in these books, but it does give a real emotional undertone to the midsection of this book. Now, there are issues with this book, and some pretty glaring issues. Take away the Tobias subplot where he's moaning and groaning throughout pretty much the whole book. He becomes rather one note throughout it. But that's not the main problem with this book. The plot of this book is where things start to fall apart. The plot is a sandwich. So you've got the start, you've got the middle, you've got the end. The 2 bits of bread on either side in this book have gone stale. However, the meat on the inside in the middle is rather juicy and succulent. Let's cover the plot, shall we? So Tobias and Rachel decide to attack Dealin' Dan's car dealership. Stupid. Absolutely stupid, nonsensical. Why are you doing this? Tobias decides that he's a crusader for hawks everywhere, and decides to free this one hawk in a cage because the hawk appears on television. And Tobias sees that as a form of exploitation, despite the fact that the hawk doesn't care that it's on TV. The hawk doesn't give one solid shit that it's on television. Tobias decides to take matter into his own hands and pull off this dangerous, meaningless stunt. And then Miss Impulsivity herself, Rachel, who we discovered in book 2, doesn't really follow orders and acts very impulsively. Just making sure my microphone's still working. She decides to help out by stomping this place as an elephant in morph. And when they approach the other Animorphs, Marco quite rightly says, "Are you insane?" Because he's already got that catchphrase, and I love it. But the problem with this is, in book 2, at the very start, the whole group is out and they get shot at by hunters, and they all decide, right, we're going to take the gun from this hunter and we're going to drop it here, there and everywhere. They fly at somebody with a gun. And they think, yeah, we're cool, we're fighting for animal rights and shit, as Californians like to think they tend to do. Then this book, number 3, Marco is annoyed that Tobias pulls off a very similar sort of stunt. Now I think, where's the consistency in the characters here? The only one who's consistent here is Rachel, because she just wants to go gung-ho into these things, so she remains consistent. But Marco, I've got to give him a bit of shtick here, because he was well into the whole flying at hunters thing in the last one, but as soon as Tobias has his own little side mission where he's trying to save a hawk, he gets angry. Now you could say it's because there was an elephant on television, but it's very similar to what you did in the last book, Marco, so you can't really go criticising. But yeah, there is a problem as well of a Rachel turning up at a car dealership. Why was it there anyway? I don't know. Bad start to the book. Just so many little bits that are iffy. The character consistency is a bit off from the last book. And yeah, it's just silly. It's Tobias on a hawk saving crusade. I think partly it was to get him and Rachel together, because we're already starting to see the little romances come in. We've seen Jake sort of touching Cassie's hand, and Rachel touching Tobias's wing. I don't think we've seen that bit yet. Oh no, she starts stroking his crest. Oh dear, these are 12 and 13-year-olds. We shouldn't be doing this yet. That should be books 40 onwards or something, when they're actually fucking old enough. Right. Where were we? Okay. Tobias runs off and finds an invisible, cloaked tanker. Now, obviously he doesn't think this is a tanker at first, but it turns out to be a massive tanker, the size of a town, as they so say. The Animorphs then morph to wolf and investigate this. They bump into another wolf pack afterwards, which becomes a rather action-packed few chapters in the middle of this book. This is the good part of the book. All this middle stuff is rip-roaring fun. And then we get to the end of the book, where they come up with a plan to uncover the tanker above the whole town. They attempt this, they fail, because Vista 3 turns up and scuppers their plans, and then they escape, survive. Now this is something that I appreciate in the Animorphs series, where they do fail a lot. I believe up until book 7, they continue to fail in practically every regard, apart from surviving. It's more realistic. 5 kids against an army of invasive slugs. They try to scratch at the war machine of the Yerks and get pushed back each time. Yeah, realistic, happy, love that. It's better than every book. They come out successful and they've destroyed the Kandrona and they've destroyed the ship and they've given Visifree a right good kick in the bollocks and everyone's happy. No, that's not how Animorphs works. That's not how it should work. So I'm happy for that. That's the only shining light from the end of the encounter, because apart from that, the story is just silly. Silly, silly, silly. As silly as the dealing down stuff at the start. The plan is gopping. The payoff is ridiculous. Vista 3 himself is ridiculous. And it just the deep stuff with Tobias's grief and depression and attempt at suicide, all that really deep emotional stuff, the tone of that is here. The tone of the rest of the book is over there somewhere. And there's no connectivity between the two, and it becomes a bit unfocused. Let's just run through the end. So they get dragged up into the ship. They find out, oh, actually, maybe this was a bad idea because we can't get in. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Well done. You couldn't have seen that from the start. Okay. So Tobias is stuck outside. Visser 3 finds him, and Tobias somehow steals a Dracon beam. Yes, it is pronounced Dracon beam. Thank you, Michael Grant. He did post that on Twitter. He steals a Dracon beam from a Tax, and it's just, oh, I've lost my Dracon beam. Or, as they call it. I'm pretty sure the Taxans are Welsh, you know. So Tobias steals that, flies off. As the ship is rocketing up into the air, he's managing to find the bridge, and then he turns around and with his talons pulls the trigger and shoots up the control room. Visser 3 watches on. No! I still think he's Charles Dance, by the way. I'm trying to put Charles Dance in Visser 3. And it's just ridiculous. The helicopters and bug fighters just sort of stand there whistling as the ship is turning over and whacking them out of the sky and creating big holes, funnily enough, in the water tank, and the animals fly out, and they've got just enough time to morph into a bird and shoot up from the trees, and it's just silly. It's too much. I mean, I understand that Animorphs is very silly sometimes, but this was too much. It was too many conveniences and silly plot twists and turns. Visser 3 is an incompetent buffoon. It really lets this book down, that ending. There's a whole bit with the female hawk getting shot down. I've tried to think, what is the underlying message we're getting from this female hawk, and I actually couldn't quite put my finger on it. If you lot want to speculate, put it in the comments. But what was the message we're trying to get from this female hawk Tobias is chasing and then get shot down? I don't know quite how it relates to. Maybe it's something to do with he sees this hawk, he's falling into the hawk life, and then the hawk dies, so he's not going to chase the hawk lifestyle anymore. I don't know, because at the end he says, "Oh, I'm part human as well." It just seemed a bit of a mess towards the end of the book. I don't know. Visser 3, at what point do the Yeerks decide, right, we've had it with this Visser 3 bloke? He's killed more, put it this way, so far more Yeerks have been killed by Visser 3 than the Animorphs, up to book 3. And that's just ridiculous. That's not how you run a military. I've discussed this before in book 2. Visser 3, at what point do some of these controllers just turn around and say, look, we got a Dracon beam, he's over there, bang, sorted. Yeah, Visser 3 can look in all directions at once and he's got a fast tail blade, but step a few meters back and just light the fucker up. You're going to kill him. At what point do they say, look, I'm risking my own life just by doing my job. Let's waste this fucker. I think later on down the line, obviously some Yeerks try to sabotage Visser 3, but the Visser 3 just gives them all Dracon beams and lets them go. At some point, somebody's just going to go and end him and say, he fell in a hole. And thankfully, probably the rest of the Yeerk Empire would praise them as the hero and promote that person to Visser 3, and you know the Yeerk invasion would probably go a lot smoother. But that's Visser 3 out of the way. Let's talk about Jake as a leader. He really surprised me. Now, remember, I've started a thing where I discuss Jake's leadership ability as we go through this series, so it might seem tangential to the Tobias stuff, but this is happening for every book. Jake as a leader. Last book, he did nothing. He got a score of 2 out of 10, and it was bordering on a 1, because he didn't do anything. He wasn't a leader in any regard. Somehow, I'm not sure whether it's because, I don't know, maybe Michael and Catherine swapped and the other person authored this book, but suddenly Jake is being leader-like. There's a difference between management and leadership. Management is you make people do stuff and you put people here or there and say, that's your task, go do it. Leadership is being a focal point. It's being a point where everybody else can come together and work as a team. And Jake does that quite a lot in this book. They'll all be discussing and he'll say, right, okay, we've done that. Let's talk about this. That's the plan. What are your opinions? Let's all get this thing moving in one direction. Jake, for I think 3 or 4 times in this book, says something, and I think, that's how a leader would say this. That's how a leader would act. And it's come out of nowhere. So well done, Jake. Some leadership stuff, but this is the big but. This is an American-sized but. The plan to take down the tanker is gopping. Jake, for all your good work in acting like a leader, any leader would look at that plan and say no. The plan is to morph Trout for the first time, and we've already seen the problem with first-time morphs, to go into this tanker, a tanker that don't know what goes on the inside of it, and then inside of a tanker that's supposedly the size of a town, find the buttons and switches and passwords to turn off the invisibility cloak, under the assumption that the Yeerks would have not noticed this going on, and move the ship back over the town. What a stupid bloody plan, Jake. And it does fail, as you'd expect, because they get sucked into the machine and they find that they can't get out of this water tank. Who'd have fucking thought it, Jake? Now, it could have been worse. They could have gone into this pipe and there could have been a sieving system, as you'd expect, because you're sucking up a lake. The leader should think, right, hold on. So they're trying to get water. What's one thing you want to do when you're taking untreated water? You're going to cleanse it. And how do you cleanse it? The first thing you do is you get rid of large objects. Things like fish, things like pebbles and leaves and rocks, so you have a sieve system. Jake should have thought, hold on, so they're sucking up water. The first thing we're going to encounter is a sieving system. For whatever reason, they didn't. That's what logically should have been the thought. What a stupid plan, Jake. You as a leader should have said, right, that's the plan. Actually, no, that's not the plan. Let's think of something else. So Jake's leadership score is going to drop. For all the good stuff, though, it does raise his score a bit. So last time he got a 2. I'm going to give him a 5 this time. 5 out of 10 for Jake's leadership. He acted like a leader, but the plan really drags his score down. Jesus Christ, Jake. One more thing before I get onto the final score for this book. Radar. While they're discussing uncovering this large tanker, the Animorphs decide that the best thing to do would be to uncloak the ship so it can be seen by not only local eyes but local radar. Now, it's been a while, but I don't think that's how radar works, lads and ladies. Understandable, they're 12 and 13-year-old kids, they probably don't have the first fucking clue how radar works. But radar is a series of frequencies that bounces off surfaces and reflects back. I don't think something being invisible is going to change that, because the surface is still there. So the whole idea of, oh, well, radar will see it, I think is total bollocks. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a fun fact in here, actually. The ship is said to be manta ray sort of shape. Manta rays tend to be very flat and very curved. It's probably very good for deflecting radar, unless the radar's coming from like directly below it. So the Yeerks have probably taken this radar into account and made the ship so that it doesn't reflect radar waves directly. If you look at modern warships, pretty much any modern warship, you will find that there is no 90-degree angle to the surface. You will not find a straight surface, straight up. No 90-degree angles, because how it works, if you've got a straight surface there and you've got a radar over there, radar shoots, the frequency hits that, and because it's at a 90-degree angle, it shoots straight back. Satellite catches it, you've spotted this object. Modern warships, most angles are slightly off in either which direction. Radar comes, hits the surface, bounces away. So there's your fun fact. Go find a warship, and I challenge you to find a 90-degree angle to the surface of the water. You will not. But there's your fun fact. And another fun fact, this is not a 10 out of 10. Sorry, Osmium Peach. Nor is it a 9 out of 10. Nor is it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it a 7. So the weakest of the 3 books we've read so far. The middle is good. The sandwich, the bread parts of this sandwich are stale and they're going slightly green because there's just too many silly parts and it drags the real good parts down. Because there are some really good parts in this book. Next up though, we have this one. Number 4, The Message, and I'm going to spoil you here. They find a friend underwater. And I like this book, and it's going to be our first Cassie book. Let's face it, so far in the first 3 books, Cassie doesn't really have character at the moment. So we'll see if that changes in book number 4. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the review. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Thomas Heap, Thomas Heap 91, I believe. Go join the Discord where we discuss Animorphs stuff. And go read Animorphs some more. Go do what I'm doing, reread the series. Chris Grimes' graphic novel comes out on October 6th. I'm going to be getting it. I hope you go get it too. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.